Hello, this is Emory,
And Patrick.
and we are here today to talk about comic books of the Great Depression. Some of these comics are still popular today, like Batman and Superman, for instance. Most comics started appearing in newspapers around the 1930s, but actual comic books did not appear until 1933. Our thesis is, although the Great Depression prohibited Americans from having extravagant lifestyles similar to the 1920s, comic books of the 1930s presented an alternate lifestyle through characters who seemed larger than life. Flash Gordon was created in 1934 and was a comic strip about Flash Gordon, a Yale graduate and world-renowned polo player who continually battled the evil villain Ming the Merciless on the planet Mongo. The comic strip was known for being written poorly, but it was still very memorable and funny because of the unlikely plots. The comics were written by Alex Raymond, who was known as the Rembrandt of comic strips. Flash Gordon also lived an extravagant life, which connects back to our thesis. Doc Savage was also a very famous comic. His name was Clark Savage Jr., and he first appeared in the novel The Man of Bronze. Doc Savage was published every month in the Doc Savage magazine until 1949. He was in 181 pulp novels, radio shows, and even a movie. He lived a life of fame and popularity, which connects back to our thesis.
Blondie is a comic about an unconventional young woman of the 1920s. The comic first appeared in 1930, and it is one of the most read comic strips ever produced. The comic strip centers on the household antics of the Bumstead family. Blondie is still in newspapers today and appears in more than 2,300 newspapers worldwide, and it has about 280 million daily readers. This connects back to our thesis because of the 1920s lifestyles. Dick Tracy was a comic that was packed with violence. Chester Gould was the cartoonist who created Dick Tracy, and he knew he had wanted to be a cartoonist since he was a kid. He first introduced Dick Tracy to America through a dramatic story that set the basic elements of the strip. Tracy was first seen in a hopeless witness crime involving those closest to him. He immediately joined the police force and brought criminals back to justice. Gould's main theme was that moral outrage and unspeakable punishment must confront ruthless crime. The strip was generally centered around Tracy's pursuit of some evil villains. The strip was also known for its invention of futuristic gadgets. Dick Tracy relates back to our thesis because it was such an extravagant lifestyle with his In 1939, one of the most famous comics ever produced was introduced. It was called Batman. It was by DC, known as Detective Comics. People liked Batman because they could relate to him because he was a normal person. He was self-trained, and he was just a very cool superhero. At first, Batman was a vigilante who went around fighting crime, but he was not liked by the police. His sidekick was Robin, who was also an orphan. Their main villains were Joker, Two-Face, and Penguin. Many of these comics we have talked about are still around today and are very popular. Some of the comics from 1930s, although costing only 10 cents at the time, can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars today. Many of these characters had extravagant lifestyles and very cool gadgets. Many of these comics helped kids get through the tough times during the Depression.